The cafe was the kind of place people came to forget themselves. Warm light, low music, the smell of cinnamon over rain. Mara, the evening waitress, had seen every kind of guest. Tired faces, first dates, lonely regulars. But tonight, 3 men sat near the corner table. Too quiet, too elegant for the neighborhood. One of them drew every glance without trying. Tall dark coat, posture regal. His voice was deep and deliberate when he spoke. The others listened, deferential, as if their laughter needed permission. When Mara approached with the tray, the man leaned toward his companions and spoke softly in Romanian. Privește o timida, dar frumoasă. Ar fi fost o mireasă perfecta in alt secol. Look at her, shy but beautiful. She would have made a perfect bride in another century. The table chuckled. They thought it safe. No one here spoke the tongue of old Europe. Mara's hand trembled slightly as she set down the cups. Then she looked straight at him and replied, calm and clear, Intre un old secol, domnul, probabil aș fi știut să fug mai repede. In another century, sir, I probably would have known to run faster. Silence. Even the music seemed to hesitate. The other 2 men froze. One nearly dropped his spoon. The king, for that's what he was to them, raised his eyes to meet hers. For a moment, the storm outside felt like it was holding its breath. No one had ever answered him in his own language. Not for 100 years. A slow smile touched his lips, equal parts surprise and curiosity. You understand Romanian? He said, switching to English now, voice softer, testing her. Mara steadied the tray against her chest. Better than you think. The other men exchanged a look, amusement fading into unease. He leaned back in his chair, studying her as if seeing a ghost. Then tell me, he said quietly, what else have you been pretending not to understand? And for the first time that night, Mara realized the same thing the others did. His reflection wasn't in the window behind him. The cafe closed at midnight, but the storm refused to. Mara stepped outside, umbrella in one hand, keys in the other. The parking lot shimmered with reflections of neon and rain. She thought she was alone until a voice spoke behind her. Most people forget to lock the side door, he said. She turned. The man from earlier stood beneath the awning, coat untouched by water, as if the rain simply avoided him. His companions were gone. Only that impossible calm remained. I wanted to apologize, he continued, for what was said. Mara's pulse quickened. You mean the part where you called me a perfect bride in another century? He gave a small, disarming smile. You understood perfectly. She crossed her arms. You sound surprised. I am, he admitted. Romanian is not a language many inherit. Mara hesitated, the wind pulling strands of hair across her face. My grandmother spoke it. She was from Sighișoara. She used to tell stories before bed about shadows that spoke and hearts that never stopped beating. His eyes lifted at that. And what did you think of those stories? I thought they were meant to scare me. Did they? She shook her head. No, they felt sad. Something softened in his expression, a crack in the marble. Your grandmother was a wise woman. Lightning flared, close enough to paint his features in white. His face looked both ageless and exhausted, as if centuries lived behind his eyes. Mara tried to hide her unease. Who are you, really? He stepped closer, rain whispering against his shoes. Someone who forgot what it means to be understood, he said, until tonight. Then he turned and walked into the storm. Not away from it, through it, without a single drop touching him. Mara stood frozen, listening to the echo of his voice fade beneath the thunder, realizing that some stories don't begin when you meet someone, they begin when you recognize something you were never supposed to remember. Sleep refused to come that night. Mara sat at her kitchen table, phone screen dim, the word Sighișoara still ringing in her mind. She searched old photos her grandmother had left behind, sepia faces, stone villages, and one portrait that had always unsettled her. A woman stood in it, maybe 20, with the same eyes Mara saw in her mirror every morning. In the background, a man blurred by motion, a shadow in uniform, looking directly at the camera. His presence had always felt accidental, but tonight it didn't. The next evening, she brought the photo to the cafe. She told herself it was curiosity, but she knew it was something closer to hunger for answers. When the doorbell chimed, she didn't have to look up. The same quiet, deliberate footsteps crossed the floor. He noticed the photograph before she could speak. His gloved hand hovered above it, trembling just enough for her to see. "Where did you find this?" "It was my grandmother's," Mara said. "Taken around 1940. Do you recognize anyone?" He studied the image, eyes darkening. "I knew her," he said finally. "Once." Mara frowned. "You knew my grandmother?" His voice thinned to a whisper. "No, not her. The woman she became." She laughed softly, unsure how to take that. "That doesn't make sense." "It rarely does," he replied, gaze fixed on the past. She believed people return when stories are unfinished. Mara searched his face. "And what story is that?" He met her eyes. "The one that ends with understanding." He left before she could ask more, but when she looked again at the photo, the blurred figure in the background no longer seemed blurred. The light had shifted just enough to reveal eyes the color of storm clouds, the same as his. The next night, the cafe buzzed with quiet talk, but Mara couldn't focus. Every sound, the clink of cups, the hiss of milk foam, felt like a countdown. She knew he would return. He always did now. When he entered, the air changed. The customers went silent without knowing why. Adrian, she'd learned his name only that morning, from a credit card left behind, moved like a shadow with purpose. He stopped at the counter, his voice smooth but edged with something old. "Dinner," he said. "With me. One evening. Somewhere you choose." Mara hesitated. "You don't seem like someone who eats much." His smile was brief. "Not often, but I enjoy pretending." They met later at a small bistro by the river. The waiter greeted them with candles and curiosity, sensing a story in the air. Adrian spoke little, asking instead about her grandmother, the accent, the songs, the stories. When Mara mentioned the dreams, he leaned forward. "You still have them?" She nodded. "There's always a castle, sometimes a voice calling my name, not in English." "What does it say?" She hesitated. "It says revenant, the same word from your note." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Then you've heard me before." The words hung between them. Mara tried to laugh. "You mean in another life?" He didn't answer. Instead, he studied the candlelight flickering against her face, its warmth reflected in eyes that carried too much memory for one lifetime. When she looked away, the flame bent suddenly toward him, drawn by air that didn't exist. The waiter returned to refill their glasses, and for a brief second, Adrian's reflection vanished from the wine. Mara froze, her breath catching. He noticed, softly said, "Now you understand why I rarely eat." She met his gaze, pulse racing. "What are you?" He smiled, not cruelly, not kindly, only tired. "A story your grandmother didn't finish telling." After that dinner, Mara couldn't separate dreams from memory. She caught herself glancing at shadows as if they might blink back. When she closed her eyes, she heard Romanian whispers stitched between her thoughts, familiar, tender, and older than her own life. At the cafe, Adrian didn't return for 3 nights. The absence should have been a relief, but instead, it left the air hollow. Then one evening, just before closing, a different man appeared. Expensive suit, sharp smile, eyes like dark glass. He ordered nothing. He only asked, "Do you know who sits in that corner table?" Mara tried to sound calm. "A regular." "He's no regular." The man leaned forward. "You should stay away. He has a habit of destroying what he loves." "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who's watched him forget humanity too many times." He stood, leaving a business card she never saw him pull out. Only one word was printed on it, Vauclair Adrian's surname. That night, Adrian appeared again, standing outside under the rain that refused to touch him. "You've been warned," he said before she could speak. "I don't scare easily," Mara replied. "You should," he whispered, "because I'm not sure which of us the warning was meant for." His eyes darkened, a storm without sky. There are others like me who think compassion is a disease. They smell it on you now. He stepped closer, the air colder around him. If they come, don't run to light. They see too well in it. Mara's voice trembled. And you? I follow what I love, he said. That's my weakness. Then he was gone again, leaving only a circle of dry pavement where the rain refused to fall. The warning came true sooner than she expected. 2 nights later, as Mara closed the cafe alone, a hand brushed the window from outside pale, motionless, followed by another. When she turned the key, the door swung open on its own. It wasn't Adrian, it was the man with the dark glass eyes. His voice was almost kind. He told you to be careful, didn't he? Before she could answer, he stepped inside, moving faster than breath. You shouldn't exist, he said softly. You woke something in him that should have stayed dead. Mara backed away, heart hammering. What are you talking about? He smiled, a perfect, cold imitation of warmth. Our kind doesn't dream, girl. But since you spoke his language, he does again. That's dangerous for all of us. A shadow cut across the floor. The lights flickered, and Adrian appeared behind him, silent as gravity. Enough, he said. The intruder turned. You'd break centuries of silence for her? Adrian's tone lowered. She's part of it. Mara looked between them, shaking. Part of what? Adrian met her gaze. You think your grandmother told you stories, she was remembering. He reached toward her, hesitant. Your blood carries echoes of what once belonged to me, a promise I made and lost. The other vampire laughed bitterly. You still believe in promises. Adrian's eyes burned silver. It's the only thing that's kept me from becoming you. The air fractured, the lights shattered. When they cleared, the intruder was gone, the door wide open to the rain. Adrian turned back to her, voice barely a breath. Now you see, I wasn't hunting you. I was following memory. Mara swallowed hard, still trembling. And what am I supposed to do with that? He looked at her, almost human. Decide if remembering me will save you, or doom you too. The night after the attack, Mara found herself walking through the city in a haze. Every face felt unfamiliar, every sound too sharp. Somewhere, she knew Adrian was watching, not to follow, but to guard from a distance. It was both comfort and curse. When she reached her apartment, the door was already open. The intruder waited in the dark, the same man with glass eyes. He can't protect you forever, he said softly. You've tasted his world now. It will want you. Before she could run, he moved, a blur of hunger and heat. Pain tore through her shoulder as his fangs grazed skin. She screamed, collapsing against the wall. Then the air itself roared. Adrian struck him like a storm unleashed, the sound more wind than violence. The intruder crashed through the window, vanished into the night. Blood ran down Mara's arm, bright against the pale of her blouse. Adrian knelt beside her, eyes wild with something between terror and love. You're bleeding. She laughed weakly. You don't say. He hesitated, then said what he swore never to. If I don't act now, you'll die. She met his gaze, trembling. Then do it. He bit his own wrist, the gesture ancient, reverent, and pressed it to her lips. The taste was metallic, electric, endless. For a heartbeat she felt the weight of centuries pour into her veins, and then silence. When she woke, dawn hovered on the horizon. Adrian sat nearby, watching. You didn't turn me, she whispered. No, he said quietly. I only gave you what was mine to share memory. Her skin still burned where his blood had touched it. Outside, the sun rose without color. Mara looked at him, tears slipping down her cheek. What happens now? He answered, almost to himself. Now you'll start to remember what I tried to forget. For days, Mara drifted between worlds, half dream, half memory. She saw places she'd never been, castles beneath eclipsed skies, candlelit halls where laughter sounded like prayer. And always Adrian was there, not as he was now, but younger, human. The woman beside him, her grandmother's face, smiled with the same quiet courage. When she woke, her apartment smelled faintly of smoke. The man with the glass eyes had returned, this time with others pale silhouettes standing in the doorway. "He broke the covenant," one hissed. "She carries his blood." Before Mara could scream, a shadow fell across them. Adrian emerged from the window like night reclaiming its throne. The others recoiled, but their leader didn't. "You've grown sentimental," he sneered. Adrian's voice cut through the room. "You mistake sentiment for strength." They fought faster than vision, quieter than thunder. The walls shook, glass shattered, and when it ended, the intruders were gone, dust in the wind. But Adrian was wounded fire across his chest, where sunlight should never touch. Mara caught him before he fell. His blood glowed faintly against her hands, not red, but silver. "You're burning," she whispered. "Not yet," he said, forcing a smile. "You shouldn't have to see this." She pressed her forehead to his. "You shouldn't have to hide it." He stared at her eyes full of centuries and the exhaustion of forever. "You're not her," he said softly, "but you carry what she left me, the courage to love something that ends." She held him tighter, rain bleeding through the broken window. "Then don't end." He laughed weakly. "You think I have a choice?" "Yes," she said. "Stay, just this time." For a moment, the storm outside calmed, as if the sky itself obeyed her. And in that silence, for the first time in hundreds of years, the Vampire King stopped running from morning. The following night, the city seemed slower, quieter, as if the rain itself was listening. Mara found Adrian on the old bridge overlooking the river, his coat torn, his skin pale beneath the glow of the streetlights. He didn't turn when she approached. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "They'll come again." "I don't care," she answered. "Not until you tell me the truth." He exhaled, a sound that wasn't quite human. "The truth is older than I am." He gestured toward the water. "When I was still a man, before the wars, I loved a woman who carried light in her voice. Your grandmother's blood carries hers the same melody, the same courage." "So that's why you keep looking at me," Mara said quietly. "You see her." He shook his head. "No, I see you. But through you, I remember who I was when I still believed in redemption." The wind brushed past them, cold and clean. "I made a promise to her," he continued, "that I'd find her soul again, no matter how many lifetimes it took. I thought I was chasing her ghost. Now I see I was chasing forgiveness." Mara's voice softened. "And did you find it?" He looked at her, eyes silvered by the streetlight. "Yes, but forgiveness comes with a price." She frowned. "What price?" He stepped closer. "Memory. Mine for yours." Before she could respond, he touched her forehead lightly, and in that instant, she saw flashes not of castles or wars, but of him standing alone for centuries, mourning every sunrise she never saw. When she opened her eyes, tears blurred the city lights. "You gave me your past." Adrian smiled faintly. "It's safer with you. I'm not meant to remember happiness." The river below carried their silence like a secret between worlds. Weeks passed. The city healed, pretending none of it had happened. The cafe reopened under new lights, with walls freshly painted, the smell of roasted beans masking the memory of storms. But every night before closing, Mara still caught herself glancing at the corner booth, the one he always chose, where the world first shifted. Sometimes the glass fogged without reason. Sometimes a cup she hadn't touched would tremble faintly, as if remembering the weight of invisible hands. She told herself he was gone, that immortality had finally let him rest, yet part of her knew better. The dreams hadn't stopped, only changed. Now, when she slept, she saw him walking through streets that blurred between centuries, turning every time the wind whispered her name. One rainy evening, the bell above the cafe door rang, though no one entered. A chill moved through the air. On the counter sat a small folded note, dry despite the weather. Her hands shook as she opened it. 2 words, written in elegant Romanian script. Sunt aici. I am here. Tears blurred her vision. She set the note beside a steaming cup and whispered into the empty room. Bind I revenant. Welcome back. Outside, thunder rolled, and the lights flickered once just enough for the window to catch two reflections instead of one. For a heartbeat, she smiled, because she finally understood what her grandmother meant when she spoke of eternal stories. They never end. They only wait for someone brave enough to answer.